The following program is a PodcastOne.com production.
From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Now, here's Steve Austin.
I'm sitting here with Bill Burr, one of the funniest guys I've ever seen on YouTube, and finally he's here in person at 316 Gimmick Street. The guy was kind enough to drive across Los Angeles in his Toyota Prius on a Saturday afternoon. Welcome to my house. Thank you for coming over.
Thank you for having me.
God.
You immediately broke my balls the second I pulled up. I knew I was going to get shit for that. Going over to Stone Cold's place, in a 9-year-old dented Prius. At least I got it washed before I came here.
People on my show have been listening to me knock the Toyota Prius for years. And just because it wasn't really so much the car, because the car is a very unique piece of mechanical engineering. It's badass. You know, the technology behind it. And here's the thing. I'm such a car freak. It's like the Crown Victoria, which is what, you know, you've been in New York City. You're from Boston. You know, basically all the cabs were, you know.
Crown Vics.
Crown Vics, or all of the Lincoln Town cars. Same thing. All those cars, 300,000 miles, 400,000 miles, they last forever.
Right.
And so when I get in these Toyota Priuses, the thing about it, when you get into a cab, those Crown Vics, the legroom in the back is for shit. All of a sudden, when these Toyota Priuses started coming into vogue and they started putting the taxi signs on them, you get into the back of those things, you've got twice as much room as a Crown Vic. So I started loving the Toyota Prius from that aspect.
Right.
And then the other day, I bought this Ford Focus that I showed you out there on my curb.
Right.
I'm gonna make you a sweet deal before this podcast is over.
You just bought that?
I just bought that.
And you're already trying to get rid of it.
Well, it's because
you tried to sell it to me on the phone right over here, and when I pulled up, you're like, "Hey, nice to see you, Bill. I want to show you this fucking pea soup green."
It's metallic pea, Bill.
Oh, sorry.
I'm gonna make you a sweet deal on this car.
All right.
But I was on my way over to the pick up my Ford Focus at the dealership because I bought it from my mother-in-law. I figured I was doing the right thing. She decided to sell it. We kind of settled at a price. It was low retail, high trade-in, so it was a fair deal for both of us. And then the repair bill came in, and the brakes were squeaking, all kinds of bullshit. You know, put it in the shop, and the repair bill cost more than I paid for the son of a bitch.
Oh, yeah. That's why you don't buy it for relative.
But so anyway,
you don't buy it
I know,
for
but it was my
now you're going to give her a dirty look during the holidays?
God damn it. I got taken to clean by my mother-in-law, Bill. I know the same. As soon as I drove off, she was just laughing her head and shaking her head at me. I got that big motherfucker. I got him.
Well.
But I was in the Prius going to the Ford dealership. I started talking to the cab driver. Dude, how's this thing on repairs? Never needs a repair. It had 200-something thousand miles on it. Still going strong. So I respect the Toyota Prius.
No, it's a Toyota. If you change the oil every couple thousand miles, it's going to last. I mean, technically, every car should never die if it's made right. I mean, the engine block's made out of steel. All you got to do is just change all the fluids and not drive like an asshole. I mean, it should last forever, but people don't. They drive around with the fluids too low. They beat the shit out of it. You know, and then they think they need something new. I love it, dude. I'm telling you right now, that car, you know, I just got it washed, so it's looking halfway decent. But when that thing needs to be washed, I could literally leave that car in the middle of a riot running, and no one would take it. They might throw a rock through it or whatever, but I can come out. That's what I love about that car is I can take it anywhere, and it always runs, and it gets great gas mileage, and I don't give a shit when people open their door into it. So I am finally getting a nice car, though. I ordered I got a car coming, but it's not getting here till October, and that's going to kill me when some asshole just opens their door into it.
But that's the new car blues. When you get that new car, you know, it's like getting a new pair of tennis shoes. You're going to scuff those things sooner or later.
Yeah, except it costs you $50,000.
Yeah,
a little bit different.
Yeah. So when you bought the Prius, what was the inspiration behind that? I mean, because what were your other options?
My inspiration was that I was already doing enough damage. I put my own hole in the ozone layer, flying every other weekend or whatever. So I was just like, all right. And like the air quality out here is not great, and you can't really go that fast. And just I don't know. And I don't know. I knew it was a Toyota. I don't know why I bought it. I think back then I was really into the whole let me try to, you know, do something positive for the environment, which I still try to do. But there's just, until they deal with the population problem, you no matter what you do. I even think like these Teslas, what I want to hear is when they get rid of the battery Right. What does that do? What is that worse for the environment? Now, you know that's going to come out, and the gas combustion engine guys are going to, fund the study for that.
Right.
What about that dude who put it on autopilot and got himself killed?
No, I didn't hear about that.
Well, these kids were putting up videos. I saw one where they had the self-drive option on the thing, and they literally took a nap. They're going down the highway, and they wake up. They're like, oh, there's like an hour of the trip gone. And I was just like, I would never have the courage to do that. So some poor bastard was making those kinds of videos, and what happened was, whatever, he was asleep or not paying attention. I don't know what was going on, but the sun was shining. There was a giant, 18-wheeler that was all white. It didn't read it properly. It read it as daylight and just drove right underneath the thing or something. Now, granted, I'm telling you, like 20 people told me this. I've never looked at any video or read anything about it, so I'm just paraphrasing what they say, which is what I do. I'm not a big reader. Yeah, I don't even like watching videos. Like, if whatever you tell me in the hour or whatever, right. I'm going to take as law.
Yeah, but see,
and I'm going to repeat.
But here's the thing, Bill. Whatever technology is, they've been talking about these cars that drive themselves. And dude, at 51, you're clipping in here at 48?
48. Just turned 48.
Just turned 48. So you knew
the odometer just flipped.
Just flipped. But, man, I've been around long enough that I'm pretty skeptical. I dig technology, but I used to spend my life on the road for 15 years. I've driven all over the United States of America. We go to foreign countries. We get on buses because the driving laws are all fucked up over and you drive on the wrong side of the road. And you don't know where the fuck you're going. But over here, Rick Rude, Ravishing Rick Rude. Are you a wrestling fan?
Big time.
So Ravishing Rick Rude, we should say, God damn it, Steve, arrive alive. So we always try to get to the places safe and sound and perform in front of the people, put on a goddamn good show, and get on to the next rodeo. So I ain't going to trust no machine to guide me because I was real picky about who I would let drive the car. Right. Like Mick Foley, love the guy to death. Don't let him drive. Diamond Dallas Page, one of my best friends. Don't let him drive. Fucking Jersey guy.
No, because they drive too aggressively, or there's too.
No, just Mick, and I love him. He's one of my best friends. But just,
having said that,
you just don't trust him behind a wheel. I don't know if he's distracted. He's one of the smarter guys in the business. If I always wanted a good opinion, I'd go to Mick Foley. Right. Kevin Nash, goodwill man. Badass Billy Gunn, goodwill man. Okay, all of a sudden you got the Tesla. You dial in. Hey, here's your destination. I'm going to trust this GPS system because when I moved to L.A., I remember I had the Garmin thing they used to put on my windshield, and Garmin would be telling me where to go. So they've advanced the whatever the GPS thing is to drive his car. I ain't trusting that motherfucker to get me where I'm going. I got to have the steering wheel in my hands, Bill. Maybe it's a control issue, but it's like when you punch in the directions on your iPhone and Siri's telling me where to go and what to turn on. I can dig that. She's gonna get me there, but I got the steering wheel in my hand. So
I had to switch it to a guy's voice.
Oh, so you didn't like the girl telling you what to do?
Because I thought that was some subversive feminism shit for me to get used to taking orders from a woman. I didn't like it. Turn left. I used to find myself fighting it, like skipping streets and everything. Yeah. Every once in a while, just be like, just to keep it even. So now it's just like a guy's voice, and I don't have that. I got major control issues too when it comes to that stuff, and I think technology was fine right up till 1995. Somewhere in the 90s, we had it right, and then that's it. Okay, and I know there's advances in medical and that type of stuff over the last, 20 years or so, but it's not, in the long run, overall, it's not helping everybody. We're just living too long. People got to die. People got to get out of whatever the magic number is of human beings that can be on the planet.
Yeah.
I think we're over it by a good, 4 or 5 billion.
Yeah.
It's got to be.
Well, you said you don't like to read. Or you don't read much.
I'm not good at it.
You're not good at it.
It takes me an hour to read 5 pages because every word reminds me. I have ADD, so I just start thinking about stuff, and I'll just go on some journey in my head as I continue reading but not retaining anything, and then I'm like, what the fuck just happened? How am I on page 30? That's basically.
Yeah, because you don't remember the first 29. That's the same thing I do.
There's some shit that I like. I like to read. If it's I'm good about autobiographies. You got all this, the Stevie Ray Vaughan stuff. Any stuff on him, I would be totally focused, riveted, reading that. But if it was back in the day, if I had a book report and they just said read this fucking book, I'd just be like, I hated it, absolutely hated it. So I was good at screwing around in class, and somehow I turned that into a living.
Hey, God dang, you went to college, right?
Yeah, I went to a bunch of colleges.
But you got a degree. You got a degree in what?
Communications.
What did they teach you in communication? Because obviously you're great at it. You're one of the funniest cats that goes around doing stand-up.
I don't remember. It was a fun, like, I finished at Emerson. I went to, like, 2 other ones, was accepted to another one, and by the time I was, like, 22, 23, I was still a freshman. I was going part-time. I had to pay for it myself, working my way through college and stuff, and I don't remember. I went to that school, and I finally it was like a performance school and shit. I could do stuff on the radio. But I wanted to ask you, just as far as being a wrestling fan. I mean, you asked me when was I a wrestling fan? I watched it hardcore from like 78 to right up early 90s, right when I started doing stand-up. And then like I missed everything because when you guys were on, the big stuff, I was out doing stand-up. So I missed like all of Seinfeld. Like I didn't see any of that until it went into reruns. I missed a bunch of sports in the 90s and all that. And I remember in the late 90s, the late, great Patrice O'Neal. Yeah. And he's the great, him and Mitch Hedberg to me and David Tell.
I'm glad you brought Mitch Hedberg
those like, when people always say like, man, you're like the funniest guy out there. It's like, yeah, because like the top 5 guys aren't here anymore. If they were back, I'd be featuring at an improv. So, in the late 90s, I was living with another comic, Robert Kelly, and him and Patrice were really into wrestling, and that's when you and The Rock brought it back. And, like, all of what I've always admired about all of you guys, because I never understood the amount of pain you were going through, was how goddamn funny all the characters were. And, I mean, all the way from, like, Captain Lou Albano to Mr. Wonderful, Rowdy Piper, all of these guys. I used to watch all of those guys and just laugh my ass off watching them. And then when you guys came along, you guys took it to a whole other level. And I always felt you guys were like prolific. Like each week when you thought you had all your guys' catchphrases down, you came up with new stuff. And me and Bobby would watch it, and we'd have Patrice on speakerphone. He was living in New Jersey, and me and Bobby were living in like this walk-through bedroom apartment, and we would sit in the living room on his pull-out bed. Obviously, he'd fold the thing up during the day, and we'd watch it on this little kitchen TV and just waiting to hear what you guys were going to say and all the different storylines and stuff. It was great, man.
I had so much fun doing that shit, and finally I had to ride off into the sunset with injuries and stuff like that. And so, although it is entertainment, it's a rough ride in there, or can be.
The best thing that happened was once they just said this is sports entertainment, then you guys could actually talk about the real pain that, people just look at, because they were thinking, it's worked out, it's fake or whatever. But it's like, dude, that guy still has to take a chair to the head at like whatever, 3/4 speed. Do you want to do that, or jump off a top rope and land, or get slammed on your back? Like, I couldn't believe when I saw Hulk Hogan one time. So first time I saw him was in the airport, and then I saw him when he did the Opie and Anthony show. And I remember going like, man, I thought he was tall. I thought he was like 6'7", but like his arms hung way down to like his knees. And he said, I used to be 6'7", but after all those years of his finishing move, jumping up with the leg coming down, he lost 3 inches of height.
Here's the thing about Hogan, and I always give that guy a ton of respect because he had a tremendous run. You think something so simple as just jumping up and dropping that leg. Here's a great thing about that leg. First of all, it worked. It looked good. He was charismatic as hell, had a great look. But anybody could take that finish. So when you come up with a finish in pro wrestling, you want it to be something that everybody can take. So if it's a bunch of damn, crazy toss around, whirly gigs, and it's acrobatic,
right?
Hey, not everybody can take that, but anybody can lay there and get a leg dropped on them. But my point is, when you're 6'6", you're 320, when you drop that leg for 30 years, man, it's like interest. It compounds daily, especially as you get up on it in the years. So, he's paying the price of that. Just a simple leg drop. And, there was times, dude, my finish was a Stone Cold Stunner. So sometimes I'd go to TV on a Monday Night Raw. Monday Night Raw, Bill, was like therapy for me because it was like, okay, I get all my shit out. It's
we
like
used to take that night off of stand-up. Me, Bobby, and Priest, we would take the night off. We'd have him on speaker. I remember one time I think he actually made the journey all the way in from Jersey just to watch it. And all three of us sitting on that little couch. We ordered like Chinese food. It was the greatest, man. But
sometimes you go to the building like, hey, Steve, would give you about 6 or 8 stunners tonight. Bam, here's going to come down to the ring, give him a stunner, give this guy a stunner, I'm like, God damn, my back's all fucked up. But you're not going to say, well, Vince, my back's kind of fucked up. I better take the night off.
Right.
You're out there ringing up stunners with a fucked up back, so it catches up to you.
It seems a lot like pro football, where their thing is always like, can you go, is the question. And there's only one answer to that, or else you're out the door and someone else is going to take your job. So I don't know. I mean, one night, me and Bobby, we were going to, thank God we didn't go through with it. There was this old comedy club, the Boston Comedy Club, and people used to always joke it looked like an old ski lodge that sort of burned down. I mean, it was a shithole. It had this wooden stage, small one too. And we were talking one night, and he was going to do the Rock's finishing move. What was that? The rock bottom? Is that what it's called? Yeah. He was going to do that to me, or I was going to do it to him. And fortunately, I mean, I was already like 30 years old during that time. That would have fucked me up. He was somehow going to do it. And we were going to get into some phony argument on like a Tuesday night, like with 8 people there, and he was going to pick me up and slam me down. And we were going to try to work the whole thing out. And fortunately, smarter, we actually... Just because, you remember when you were a kid and you'd try to do all the wrestling moves to your friend the first time? First time, I remember doing the Polish hammer, and you didn't know not to interlock your fingers. You'd slam into your little buddy's chest, and all your fingers felt like they broke off. And we didn't understand, like, all of those things. I fortunately had, like, 3 younger brothers, so I could, try out the airplane spin, everybody's move. But I remember the first time, one of the first 2 times I really fucked up my back. 4th grade, this kid put me in a figure 4 leg lock because he was trying to show me how to do it, and he got me into it. And then all the kids started going nuts, and he kind of was like into the crowd cheering. He wasn't letting me out of it. So I got up to try to undo the leg, and I felt a pull in my lower back. That was 4th grade. And then the first time I messed up my upper back was Tony Atlas inspired. His finishing move was to put you up over the head. And I picked up my brother, who was about 4 years younger than me, and I went to pick him up over my head. I swear to God, it felt like my spine bent. And I got about halfway over my head. I still remember where I was at. I was in the living room. So fortunately, there was a rug, because when I had to drop him immediately, he was crying because he fucked up his shoulder. And, so that's the funny thing. So everybody said, they go, yeah, wrestling's fake. It's like, really? When I do it, I still get hurt. So...
Well, it's funny because on your Twitter account, at Bill Burr, there's a picture of you and Nature Boy Ric Flair.
Arguably one of the funniest dudes who ever lived.
Oh, goddamn, he's hilarious, and he's my favorite pro wrestler of all time. But my point is, it plays back into your story about being in the figure 4. Bill, next time you get put in a figure 4, don't try to unlace your legs.
You
just
roll
over. You reverse the pressure.
Which way do I...
Either way, whether all you got to do is go belly down, and it puts the pressure on him. Allegedly, that's how it works. So just
do you know how cool it is? 40 years later, to hear it from Stone Cold Steve Austin. This is how you get out of the figure 4. I'm going to teach my wife how to put me in it. See if it works.
You go, dude. Just go get on YouTube. Go push Flair versus Steamboat, and watch him put Steamboat in that figure 4, and all of a sudden Ricky will get that crowd, and he's getting that crowd, and goddamn, he's almost got him, and finally turns it over, and the pressure goes to Ric Flair, and he goes to the ropes, so now he's selling the legs just like Steamboat's selling the legs, so there's no reason why, kinesiologically or anatomically, why rolling over would reverse the pressure, but was the story.
Yeah.
The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
So tell me about starting off, dude, because you said you got 3 brothers, right?
I have 4 brothers.
4 brothers?
Yeah.
Okay, so, were you the funniest guy in the family? Were you always funny?
No, I was not. No, my older brother was 10 times, still is 10 times funnier than me. Everybody I grew up in the suburbs of Boston, and I just everybody was funny. Can't explain it. There's something basically about the New York, Boston, all the way down to Jersey area, tri-state area, and all in there. Everybody's like a character. But there's something about Boston where it's just I don't know, if you watch those reality shows, more times than not, at least the ones that my wife watches, those Survivors and stuff, there's always some Boston lunatic. He's got the crazy accent. They're just a bunch of characters there. So I just think everybody, was so funny growing up that you just sort of absorb it. And there was all big families and stuff, and fighting was accepted back then, and drinking and driving wasn't No, I used to fight.
Good old days, a fist fight.
Yeah, my parents, the rule was don't hit each other in the face. It was hit each other from here to here. That was considered working it out amongst yourselves.
Yeah.
I remember my mother one time tried to smash a brush over my head because my brother said I kicked my other brother in the face, which was bullshit. I kicked him in the stomach. I don't know why to this day he said that. So my mother was brushing her hair. She had this big, like the 70s plastic, who's the fairest of them all brush. So she turned around and smashed me in the head. And I did that pussy duck. Basically, you put your shoulders up and go, and she caught me right in the middle of the back, right? And it would have been great for wrestling. The whole brush exploded. And my mother was like, we had so many kids or just so cheap. I just remember she just picked up like the brush part. And for like the next 10 years, she was just holding the brush part. And every once in a while, I'd catch her using it. I'd just be like, I would still be pleading my case going, I kicked him in it was his chest. I think that's why my brother had a bad angle. It was like a quick play at the plate or something. He had a bad angle. He thought I kicked him in the face. I didn't. To this day, I'll go to my grave denying that.
Dude, the thing was, if you popped off to my mom and she happened to be in the kitchen, she had one of those wooden spoons in her hand, and she got you cornered.
Oh, yeah.
She was going to wear your ass out with a wooden spoon,
Yep.
and she'd break them, and my dad just go get her more wooden spoons. So
My grandmother broke one.
don't talk shit to your mom when she got a wooden spoon. That was my deal. I learned that real fast.
My grandmother tried to break one over my head, but I got my arm up quick enough and it snapped. I kept messing up this rug, which she wasn't looking, a little throw rug, and she kept going like, who keeps messing this up? So it became like this game. And she went in the kitchen and she stopped real quick and looked back out and she caught me messing it up. And she, turned into the devil, just came flying at me like it was a hatchet. Yeah. And I just put my arm up. It was really weird because I only saw her a few times a year, so it was kind of like a stranger coming at me. And it snapped over my forearm, and then she just went, wow, that's the end of that spoon. And that was it. Went out and bought another one. My other grandfather used it to, you remember the 70s refrigerators? We had the side-by-side. He couldn't handle the fact that we just kind of went in there and got something to eat whenever we wanted to. So he jammed the thing in there so we couldn't open it. So we were sitting there starving. Just an ornery guy. Just jerry-rigged this thing. We couldn't get anything to eat.
Okay, so we're going back to your stand-up deal because on, and researching, it says you started in 92.
Yep.
But you probably you were testing shit out before then. What makes you decide to just turn pro and start in 92 on the stand-up career? There
is no turning pro as a comedian. It's just you just get thrown in the deep end. It's not like you can't try out material. It was a talent contest. This place, Nick's Comedy Stop, which still exists, which is crazy because I've been doing it for 24 years. That the place that I stepped on stage first still exists. Nick's Comedy Stop had a contest, Find Boston's Funniest Comedy Student. And it was just basically, a big hype thing to get a bunch of college kids in there drinking, watching their friends go up and bomb. And I saw it, and I just immediately called the number before I chickened out, before I really had to think about it. And I do remember vaguely sitting down trying to write material, and you're just sitting there going how do you do this? I've always been funny in class, but funny just happened. You just sort of improv in your whole life. You see something, you make a joke, you make people laugh, you throwing shit in or whatever. But now I'm going to sit down and artificially create this moment. How do I get to the funny and stuff? And, that took a while. Definitely took a while. But
is that I would imagine it's just like some of the guys. I watched History of the Eagles. Were you a big Eagles fan?
Yeah, I worked in a warehouse, so they played it. It got to the point they played them so much that there was a few groups that I had to take a decade break from.
Right.
They were one of them. Zeppelin.
Yeah.
The Eagles, Crosby, Stills, and Nash. We had classic hits on. There was the guys who worked in the warehouse also played in a band, and they played a lot of that classic rock stuff. So they listened to that. WZLX was what it was, and they played that shit from 9 in the morning till 5 at night. And it got to the point of I can't listen to this stuff anymore.
Yeah, I can get you on the decades off stuff because they hit them so hard for so long. I needed a little break myself, and listen to how those guys learned how to start writing songs. It was an interesting process. So here you are. You're coming out of communications. You get on the stage. You're going to write your first gig.
I was not communicating.
I know.
when I got on stage, the communication was not going well.
So did you win the gig, or how long was your first set?
It was supposed to be 5 minutes, and I think I did 3, and I bailed. I made fun of the host, and then I just got off. My first time doing stand-up, and I would say this to anybody who's getting into it, the first 10, 20 times you do it, has nothing to do with how well, good or bad you're doing. All it has to do with is when they call your name, having the balls to go back up there or go up there the first time. That's all it is. And I just was joking with the buddy Rogan. I was joking with him, just going like, I am so glad YouTube did not exist when I was going through my "Am I the next Bill Hicks" phase. You know what I mean? Yeah. There is a phase that a lot of comics go through, myself included, where you think, hey, am I going to be the guy with the leather jacket smoking the cigarette, you know, telling them how it is, you know? Yeah. It's sort of like, you know, and everybody, whether you had the jacket and the cigarette, you know, kind of tried that hat on for a minute. And thank God, I know they exist somewhere. The footage is on a VHS tape somewhere in the back of one of my closets, but it'll never see the light of day, right?
But when so you hit the stage and all of a sudden you start getting booked. I mean, what's the dues paying process? Are you working another job on the side?
It's a lot like when I read books on, like, you know, I've read all you guys' books. Like one of my favorite ones was Ric Flair, To Be the Man, You Got to Beat the Man. I own that in hardcover. Like I read all of those things. And the stuff that I related to the most was the dishonest promoters and being in a car with another performer and laughing and joking and having beers afterwards. But obviously the level of physical pain and the shit that you guys went through is way beyond. Our stuff is more like just absolute humiliation. Just like, you know, there's still sometimes, like, I will think about stuff that happened to me when I was on stage. It always happens when I'm in the shower. I don't know why. And it's just some of the, like, where I just got so owned by a crowd and had no comeback, and just how embarrassed I was. And there's always friends in the crowd when it happened. Every once in a while when those memories come up, I literally have to, like, shout it out of my brain. Like, I'll just be in the shower, and my wife will be down the hall, and she just hear me just go, like, oh. And then she'll be in the kitchen going, like, are you okay? I'll be like, oh, yeah, it's, I just, you know, my back.
Yeah.
And it isn't. It's me thinking about, like, you know, yeah, I took some bad ones. It's weird. The older I get, they're starting to fade from my memory. But, I mean, there's definitely a lot of horrific gigs, not getting paid, you know. I mean, in the first, you're just so happy that you're getting any stage time. And that's another big thing. At some point, you got to put a worth on what you're doing, because you just come into the business hat in hand, like, I'll do anything. I'll clean the bathrooms. I'll sweep up. Just give me 2 minutes. I'll drive. You know, I was in Massachusetts. I used to drive up to New Hampshire and Maine for 5-minute sets. And I was working with my dad in a dental office, right? And we'd be numbing up people, pulling teeth. And why he would be. I'd just hand him the shit. And then the second the gig it was over, I'd go out and go do a gig. And I was still living at home, so my dad knew I was going all the way up to Maine. And he would book patients at like 7 in the morning. Like, my dad was just a lunatic how hard he worked, like 7 to 7. And, you know, I would come home. I'd get home at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I would wake up and I wouldn't be worth shit. And he'd be like chewing me out in front of the patients. Like, Christ, Bill, you're out to lunch, like right in front of somebody sitting there with their mouth open and shit. But I still remember the first time I got paid $5 in gas money, and it blew my mind. I just remember I had this 83 Ford Ranger, vinyl seats, piece of shit, just like the anti-pussy mobile, right? Just driving this thing. And I just remember just looking at that $5 bill thinking, like, I got that for telling jokes. And just that whole idea of, like, can you imagine if I could actually, like, not have a day job? I remember the dream was very incrementally. Imagine if I became a paid comic and I was just the host, and then imagine being the feature, and then imagine being the headliner. And then I remember just fantasizing about the day I could quit my day job. And I started out also with Dane Cook, and I remember he was working at Blockbuster Video, and I remember the day, like, he quit. He was telling me he was quitting. Like, I vicariously lived through it with him, and and then, like, I remember, like, calling him up or seeing him at Nick's, like, later on, a few days later, being like, dude, what's it like? What's it like? He's like, oh, it's awesome. He goes, you wake up whenever you want. You just sit there. I remember he said this. He goes, like, you know what? I'm going to have some toast. And, like, that freedom I've never taken that for granted. Like, the unbelievable freedom that you have once you're a working comic, where you can just, you know, you work when you want to work, you know. I mean, it doesn't happen. I mean, when I got to that level, it took like 20 years to be like, okay, I have a following, I can work like that. But I still remember how awesome it was. And when I would do the road, I was a big sports fan, so I just, you know, I would just look at, like, you know, if I had a bunch of college gigs, I would just take out the baseball schedule, football, hockey, whatever the hell it was, and I would just book gigs around there, or I would drive out of my way to go see shit. But a lot of that stuff was unlike you, where it was just me by myself, those college gigs and shit. Went to like the Mall of America.
Yeah, but if you're driving down the road by yourself, are you sitting there thinking, okay, you see a billboard, or you just start thinking about something? Are you trying to think of shit all the time?
You know what I was usually listening to music, fantasizing that I knew how to do that, and like I have this I just constantly daydreaming of me being a hero. All the fuck, I don't know why that is, but like if I listen to a Stevie Ray Vaughan song, right? I'm Stevie when he's doing something great, which is usually most of the song. But if I listen to like Stang Swang, then I'm thinking I'm Chris Layton playing the cool drums in the beginning. Right. And it's just so it was music, sports, and making people laugh. That's like my triangle offense of like trying to be happy. And so like only making people laugh was the only thing I was actually good at. Everything else I was just like, weekend warrior stuff. But music was a huge thing to me. So I was always listening to all the shit I grew up on, like AC/DC and Guns N' Roses. And then when I met Patrice, he got me into like, Biggie Smalls and Ice Cube and all that. And I remember I'd always try to buy rap tapes, and he would just look at them and just throw them out the window. And then and just laugh at me and go, this guy stinks. And then he'd tell me the guy's real. But then he was funny. I would, I tell him about Led Zeppelin and all that type of stuff. He got totally into the Beatles and stuff. It was really funny.
So when you're going out and you're doing your first gigs, I remember when I first started in the business in Dallas, Texas for 2 months, I'd work 2 days a week, Friday night and Saturday morning, and the bad guys would come in and just kick the shit out of me with kendo sticks and weightlifting belts. I was paying my dues, and then they shipped me off to Tennessee, and that's when I started working full-time. And I show up, and I'm going to have my first match in a territory that I don't know anybody. I'm 2 months in the business, and all I've been doing is getting the shit kicked out of me.
Right.
And so
now, what's your job tonight? Are you supposed to win or lose?
I'm a good guy. I'm going to win the match, and I'm a baby face, as we would call it. And Dutch Mantell says, Steve, you're working with what's his name over there? He's wearing a mask. He goes, go out there and give us about 8 minutes, and you'll beat him. I can't remember how I beat him. All of a sudden, he told me 8 minutes. I'm thinking to myself, God damn, what the fuck am I going to do for 8 minutes?
Yeah.
Because you're scared of time.
Yeah.
And then as you get, a couple more months, a year or two, dude, you need 20, 30, 40, right? So how did your routine grow from, your first, 5-minute gig, which turned into be 3 minutes at the college thing?
That's so crazy, the similarity of this. Yeah, how'd you get your time up? That's what we call it. How do you get your time up? Was basically, all right, so you had, like, in Boston, it was Nick's Comedy Stop, The Comedy Connection, and Giggles. Those were, like, the A rooms. So that would be, like, working for it was WWF when I was a kid, WWE, right? And then you had then you had the B rooms and the C rooms. So these would be, like, different wrestling circuits. So it'd be, like, in A rooms, I would be a host. In B rooms, I could feature. And if it was just some absolute shithole, actually, I never headlined. And I think maybe one time I did before I moved to New York. When I moved to New York, I knew I had 45 minutes at that point, but I had never done 45. So I had 45 minutes. I could talk for 45 minutes if I could remember all of it. And I remember I talked to this guy, Roger Paul. And I had already sent him my tape, and he really liked me. And he was the first guy that headlined me. And he goes, did you headline up in Boston? And I just lied. I said, oh, yeah, I can handle that. And what would happen was when you first start headlining, you're used to doing 30 minutes. And what kept happening was I get to 30, and it would go great. And then there was like 7 minutes of what the fuck.
Yeah.
As I'm saving my finishing move was my closing bit. And I'm saving that thing, right? And like, so my sets would, if you were to graph them, would gradually build, and then there'd just be this lull. And then I would get out on the closing bit, and it'd go back up again, but it wouldn't get to the same height as 30 minutes. So it was kind of like, yeah. That's what it was.
What are you thinking when you put your set together? Because here's the thing.
I have an idea what I'm going to open with, and I know what I'm going to close with. Like, I kind of know all the jokes, but then, like, I don't have, like, the set order. Like, it goes much better if I just think about the joke and then I just do the joke. And sometimes I have callbacks to jokes, but I haven't told it yet. But what it does is it gets you to be present. Like, I am, whatever. I am at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles. I'm at the Punchline in San Francisco. Like, I am here right now, as opposed to being up there. Like, I did the whole write it all out, word by word, memorize it, always say it the same way, do it in the same order. I did that, and I found myself on stage, it was like when I was reading a book, like my brain would just be going, and then I would start thinking I have not thought about this crowd or what the fuck I've been saying for like 3 minutes, which is a long time. And then I would start thinking why are they even laughing? Like, what is even funny about this? And then the second you think that, for me, I just start bombing. Like, it's like I'm in a plane and it starts losing altitude and I can't figure out why. And so I have to go, I have to switch it up. What I found works for me is my buddy called me recently. He goes, man, we get the third show. He goes, there's only like 30 people going to show up, 30 reservations. And from all of those years, I got like this jolt that went through me because I did the whole, there's only 30 people up here, so I'm going to go up and, act like there's 30 people. And then one day I was just like, fuck this. I'm going to murder these 30 and make them wish that they brought 30 more, which is not the most original thought. But I can't remember. Somebody told me to do that, but I just started approaching it like sports. Like, it's all right, we're down 18 runs, but you're not going to win by 19. And I'm going to make this fucking miserable for you. Right. And I'm going to try to foul off as many pitches, whatever I got to do. And it's like that athlete, mindset of not losing. Like, if you apply that to stand up, you always like, there's got to be luck. There's got to be the talent. But the biggest thing is you have to have that thing where, you're in the middle of Dallas in some shithole and everybody else is sitting there going like, oh, do I really want to do this? Should I get married and have kids? And you're out there just fuck this, flying across. And you have to kick the shit out of them or it's going to start dipping and they're not going to come back.
You got to give them bang for the buck.
You have to.
They bought a ticket. You got to give them everything.
You have to.
This is the Steve Austin Show.
Going back to one of the points you made a while ago, I think you'll agree with. I'll put the hammer on what you were saying. I was talking with Zach Wilde.
Oh yeah, he's awesome.
You know Zach.
Yeah.
It's a funny thing. Before I started rolling the recorder, Bill walks into my house. He meets my wife and my dogs, and we come in here. And I have a guitar on my wall, as most of you people that listen to my show know about my Stevie Ray Vaughan guitar. And he goes, Jesus Christ, he goes, is that real? And he dug the guitar. And so I told Bill, I said, out of 95% of people that come here, nobody ever notices that goddamn guitar. And it's one of my prized possessions.
I first saw the Stevie Ray picture, and I was just like...
Found that. We was in Santa Barbara, and we was going through an old little file thing, and I saw the Stevie Ray black and white and had to have that thing. But Zach Wilde told me, just speaking of guitar players, I asked Zach one time, I was at Ozfest somewhere in San Antonio, man, I think we were about to get lit up, hammered, and I told him he was in his room just fucking shredding, and I said, goddamn, Zach, I said, what are you thinking when you're doing that? How do you play all that?
Yeah.
He goes, Steve. He goes, bro, he's from Jersey.
Yeah.
He goes, Steve, if you're thinking, you're stinking.
Yeah. You just flow into the next idea.
Same with pro wrestling, dude. I mean, you got to think. Here's the thing, and I want to get your feedback on this because, dude, okay, just say we're at Chicago Rosemount Horizon, my favorite building. They renamed it. My favorite building to work in because of the acoustics, and the people there are just rabid for wrestling. And so 18,000 strong, you go in there, and when you're having your match, you're listening to the response of that crowd because each time you go into a spot, if I'm working, say I'm working heel and you're babyface, I'll be the bad guy, you're the good guy. I'm calling the match. Boom, beat, we're working. Bam, I'm working that crowd. I'm popping them. Bam, I'm going to bring you down, settle them down. I'm going to piss them off by getting some heat on you, fire them up by giving you a little bit of something.
Cool.
And then boom, we're going to make them come on this comeback. And then the finish, that's explosion. So my point is, we're listening to that fucking crowd. I can't hear for shit, but I can hear a crowd. If you've got 18,000 people in there, and 17,999 of them are cheering, and one motherfucker up there in row 100E is booing, I can hear him.
Yeah.
And so I'm tuned in that crowd. So you've got to be, like you said, sometimes those 3 minutes goes by, but you, to me, you read a crowd like a motherfucker.
You do it long enough, you don't.
You're very instinctive.
It's this big thing. It's this
experience.
Big noise. It's a big noise that you're controlling, and then you got to know when to bring them up, when to bring them down. That took me the longest time to learn. I remember one time, one of those times when I was, when I just told that guy, Roger Paul, that I closed rooms. So he put me in some room. I can't even remember where the hell I was at. But this guy in the middle just murdered murdered, and I forget what bodily fluid joke he ended on, and they go into the proctologist, and he's got his finger up my ass, and the fucking place is going nuts.
Yeah.
Like he has him up to 11. So I made the mistake is I went on stage and tried to start at 11, and I had nowhere to go. I got about 10 minutes into my set, and I was literally out of breath from telling jokes. And I was like, and then when I was 5, and it's just like, and what I had to do, I just started bombing for like 5 minutes, and then I gradually built it back up again. I remember I got off stage, and I had a headache. And, and I was a baby about it, and I called the comic, talked to an older comic. I'm like, this fucking guy, he's doing all this bodily fluid stuff, and he's fucking screaming. I've seen a million guys do that joke. And he just said, dude, he goes, don't ever do that. He goes, just go up. He goes, keep it going for that guy. Wasn't he great? And just start slow. Start slow and just gradually build it up again, but blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you can do that? He goes, yeah, just do that. And that was like, so much of the stuff that I learned by completely failing, and then an older comic told me, how to work that out. But I remember the first time where I was conscious that I was being able to read a crowd. But I was working this place, Harvey's, in Portland, Oregon, and the dude who ran it he had like all these telemarketers. You just paper the room, so you do it Tuesday through a Sunday, 3 shows Saturday, 2 shows Friday. All inclusive, like a $1,500 thing. So by the end, I think after taxes, you walk with like $300 to do like 9 shows or some shit, right? So I come in there Tuesday night, and it's just packed, and I was like, holy shit! Like this is like I thought I was just gonna lean on the mic and fuck around. So once you establish that you're there, I didn't have to be there like an hour before the show. So come Thursday, I came walking in about 10 minutes before I went on, and I walked in the room. I was in there for like literally 3 seconds, and I looked at the waitress and I said, what happened? And she goes, well, the guy on stage, he kind of told a joke that people thought was, I don't know, kind of sort of sounded racist and blah, 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 blah. Like I just felt the crowd. Like it wasn't it wasn't the energy of this guy's bombing. It wasn't an energy of like, we're drunk and we don't care and we're rowdy. It was this energy that something happened. Like did somebody just get thrown out or whatever? And I remember thinking I remember trying to afterwards think about what was that sound. And it isn't a sound; it's just a feeling you get. It's so weird. It becomes back to that Zach thing you were saying. Well, if you're thinking, you're stinking. Like so, when I tried to, break down the thought of what it is, you can't verbalize it. So that's the same thing. The same thing. Like that's so fucking cool. You're listening to it, building it up and bringing it down.
Yeah, but I'm watching you, so
that's unreal, man.
But here's a story that goes.
Yeah, but you guys are beating the shit out of each other. I'm just up there going, what's up with Obama? You guys are like, I'll tell you one time, like I missed Ric Flair when he came up because it was back then you had territories. So
yes.
we were Vince McMahon's WWF.
Yes.
And I forget what he NWA. So I missed all of his stuff, and but you still heard about him.
Oh yeah.
And it wasn't until, like the mid-2000s when, YouTube came out and everybody posted the clips. And I just went down this rabbit hole one night. And I went from just hearing about the legend of Ric Flair to being like, he had like so many times, like if I would have bad gigs, I would watch your guys' clips and stuff and guys being on the mic. And his stuff, it's still my favorite one ever is when he held up that loafer and he told the guy his shoes cost more than his house. I remember when I was trying to describe that line to my wife, I was literally crying, laughing, and she was going like, because she's not into I'm just telling it secondhand. She goes, was it really that funny? I was like, yeah, you had to see the guy's face. It was probably true. If you looked at the guy he was saying it to, and this guy was standing there, and what I loved was he was so bought in to the character of Ric Flair. Like, it was so fucking real to him. I loved it.
Oh, dude, you're hitting it 100% on the head. He was so convicted. It was a shoot. I mean, that in our business, like you said, a shoot match. I mean, that's when somebody buys in that deep, he's living it. And it was real to him. Just a parallel to a quick story. I always tell the story all the time, but I give it to you because you've been there. Talking about following that guy who had the bodily fluids. He's like, God damn, how do I follow that? I tried to start out at 11. dude, we used to go over to Japan, and all of a sudden you're in the slot and you're right behind either like a Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero. I mean, just some of those guys that are cruiserweights that just go like crazy, nobody's business, just extreme workers,
right?
Badasses. And all of a sudden, I got my limited move set. You know, I got a right hand, I can kick somebody, and that's about it, right? I got a headlock. But after these guys wouldn't blow the roof off a place, what do? How do you follow that?
What would you do?
You just go do your shit.
Right.
I can't try to emulate what they did. I've never done it in my life. So now all of a sudden, because they went out there, lit the crowd on fire. So you just go out there and you do your shit, and you're convicted like Ric Flair was on the promo with the shoe. You just do your match. You lay your shit in, and your intensity's high, and you don't rush it. And so that's how you follow. Did you ever try it? You must have early on, like, okay, I got to do some moves like that, even though they weren't part of your. Dude, when I was over in Japan, you know, I used to do a top rope splash, and the dude moved. He was supposed to, and I tore my tricep off my arm. We was in Japan for 3 weeks. I tore my tricep off on the third night, so I got to wrestle for 2.5 weeks with the torn tricep. You know, so that's when I knew that sticking to the ground was going to be, you know, where I was going to make, you know,
have a long career.
Yeah, where I was going to have a long career. Answer me this question, because sometimes, dude, we go out there and just say, like you said, sometimes one time a long time ago, it was me and Flying Brian, we were wrestling Shane Douglas and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and it was a big snowstorm.
One of the greatest names ever.
Yeah, and so nobody could get to the building, and there were literally 50 or so people there, and man, we went out there just like a story you said a while ago, and we lit that place on fire. 30 minutes of bust-ass tag team wrestling.
That's
awesome. We put on a show.
That's awesome.
The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
Hey, man, do you own or rent your home? Sure you do, and I bet it can be hard work. You know what's easy? Bundling policies with Geico. Geico makes it easy to bundle your homeowners or renters insurance along with your auto policy. It's a good thing, too, because you already have so much to do around your home. Go to geico.com, get a quote, and see how much you could save. It's Geico easy. Visit geico.com today. That's geico.com. But sometimes when you go out there, whether it's 50 or whether it's 20,000, sometimes you go out there and you've been on the road for a long-ass time, and you're a pretty good hand, maybe say at the 5-year mark, and then I'll go to the 10 or 12-year mark for me. But sometimes you go out there and you just get a crowd that ain't buying shit. As over as you are, Stone Cold Steve Austin, or as funny as you are at a scientific level, Bill Burr, you ever get a crowd these days that just all of a sudden just kind of lukewarm to the shit you're doing? Or are those days gone by because you're so good at what you do now?
It's more once you get known. Once you get known, then, like,
you're a big guy.
It becomes easier. Yeah, like, I'm not as, you know, if I went up against a crowd like that, I haven't done it in a while. Like, I can remember the last time that happened to me. I was going to do Letterman, and I needed to get 5 minutes, and I was new out here, so I went to this guy had this room out in Glendale, and it was just a bar. It was just a bar, and most people came there to watch the Laker game. And the host goes up, he bombs. The next person goes up, they bomb, and like 2-3 people in a row are just bombing bad. And I was in the back going like, I'm gonna get him. They knew they're kids, blah 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 blah. Once I get up there, hey, I bet some people here are gonna know who I am. You know, I've got a half hour on Comedy Central. I did a little something on HBO, and I went up there and nobody knew who I was. And I had to work totally clean and just go through this, hey, what's up with this? You know, late night TV show, dude. And I ate my balls. And then I just abandoned my TV set and I tried to turn it around by giving shit about the Lakers, you know, rather than, you know, going a positive route, which I never go. I should have gone like, hey, man, you guys like the Lakers? All right, you know, just something to get them in.
Yeah.
I was like, fucking Kobe's overrated. How much free agency help do you like? And they were just like, hater. And then they just turned back around. And it was just like they just ignored me. And I'd been in it long enough where I just laugh. Well, there you go, you egomaniac. That's what you get for that. Yeah. You know, you thought you were going to go up there and everyone was going to be, you know, thrilled to see a guy that was on VH1's I Love the 80s, whatever the stupid talking head show credit I had back then. And but, like, you know, I guess, recently I've opened for a few bands, and that can be a difficult thing where when a crowd's standing up and they're there to see music and then you come out, that it's a really, I have major, I don't care how long I've been doing stand-up, how big I ever got. There would never be a moment where I wasn't plotting backstage on a gig like that, going like, all right, I need to do this.
Right.
I need to do that. Make sure you don't do this because it didn't work the last time. I got to open for Queens of the Stone Age one time, which was killer, man, because, one of my favorite bands ever. And I just knew it. I knew going out there, I was like, oh, man. So I went out there, and I was having a good set, and it just always gets to that point, like they've had enough.
Yeah.
They didn't come here to see you. Came here to see rock stars, not some sickly-looking Ron Howard jackass, right? So I got like 12 minutes into this, and this fat chick just started screaming at me and wouldn't shut up. And so I kind of trashed. The lead singer, Josh, said, he goes, no, it went great. It's funny. He didn't like his set, and I didn't like my set. I ran into him recently. He was like, dude, you were better than us last night. I go, no, I wasn't. I got that fat chick screaming at me. He goes, no, but you handled it perfectly. I was like, I just told her to go fuck herself. I didn't do anything. And then I was just like, I sort of got her to shut up, and then I just kind of gracefully tried to get off the stage. But way back in the day, I used to open for, like, Winona Judd, and I did it like maybe 4 or 5 gigs with her. And those things were either great or they were just like if it was inside, I had a chance if they were sitting down. But I think we did Del Mar one time. We did like that outdoor racetrack, and it was like in the middle of the day, comedy during the day, outside, sun's out, and I just come walking out like it was, yeah. So like if there's situations like that, then I still can't get out of those. I mean, there are impossible situations, so you just have to sit. What I do is just mentally, I just start thinking of all the comics I'm going to call the second I get off stage to tell them how bad I ate my balls. And then you can laugh about it,
Yeah, but it always feels to get it off your chest because, I mean, sometimes you go out there and you think you're going to rock the place. I mean, you get them, but you could have done better. And it's always, you're always hanging, and this is going back years for me. You're currently still doing it. I stopped a long time ago. But you just hang on that last performance. I mean, if you rocked them, I mean, fuck, you're on cloud 9. All of a sudden, it's kind of like, when you're wrestling business, it takes you like maybe 5 years to really get it, and then you go from there to the other levels. But at 5 years, you should be pretty proficient. So you think, okay, I got this shit. All of a sudden, you go out there and you just lay a big pile of shit in the ring. Nobody gives a fuck that you can get with the match, and you just go to the back. Everybody knows you stunk the joint out. Thinking, God damn, I thought I knew how to do this shit.
That's the worst.
Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't.
Yeah, you walk backstage and everybody's avoiding eye contact. You're just like, oh,
so
man.
The next night you go out there and your confidence level has got just a little bit lower. So you're hoping you get this crowd to get your confidence back. 'Cause, dude, if you lose your swagger and
it's over.
I mean, you ain't got it no more.
That was me in 99. 99 or 2000. Well, I had failed in L.A. and I moved back.
When did you first come to LA?
New York, like 96.
How did you fail out here?
I just was not booking anything, and I couldn't get stage time. And once you're the new guy and then nothing happens for you, they're kind of over you. And then there's the next wave of new. There's always going to be, the thing about it is when you come out here, if you don't have a voice or anything like that, you're just a piece of meat. And they threw you up. So I was a piece of meat. They threw me up there, and, it's like, hey, potential. And after a little while, when nothing's happening, another 3-4 waves of young guys come in, you're out. And that's basically what happened. So I moved back to New York. I had a manager and agent. They dumped me, and I had no manager, no agent. And I just remember when I made the decision to go back to New York, it was just like, all right, why did I get into this business? I wanted to become a good comic. So I can't get the stage time out here. I got to go back to New York. And I remember thinking, I'm going to go back to New York, and I'm going to get so funny, they have to book me. That was the only game plan I had. I went back to that walk-through bedroom. That was when I started living with Bobby Kelly. This is the 90s, rollerblading and all that shit, right? Way back then. And I just did a zillion shows. And then one day, I don't know, come out the other side. And, you start thinking, oh, how the hell did I get here? It's just like, I just put my head down and did a million shows. And Dave Chappelle and Neil Brennan hooked me up with a couple of episodes of Chappelle's show. And then that thing blew up, and I got to experience, like, from a safe place where it wasn't me. It was I was standing near the guy and watched somebody go up like the Beatles, And then, and then it cooled down again for a little while. Did a little half hour for HBO. Opie and Anthony, that was a huge year, 2005. Jim Norton got me on the Opie and Anthony show. So those guys with the HBO special coming out, that gave me a little bit of a bump. So I could sell tickets on the East Coast and for whatever reason in San Francisco. I don't know why, but I think that was more the HBO special. But like all the Opie and Anthony territories, I was doing really well, and those guys used to let me do promos and shit on their show. Like they really helped all of us out. And then I guess maybe Breaking Bad and Netflix.
Yeah,
those were the big ones where you just gradually kept going up and up and up till I'm sitting here talking to you, which is still blowing my mind.
All right, everybody, give me the go-home cue. It's time to wrap up this podcast and ride off in the sunset. So let's stop here on that career trajectory note and pick it up next Thursday. Bill Burr hanging out at 316 Gimmick Street, and we'll continue the Unleashed conversation again next Thursday. Hit subscribe at iTunes so you don't miss out. And while you wait for that, why don't you check out Bill Burr's comedy special on Netflix? It's called I'm Sorry You Feel That Way, and you will laugh your ass off. And if you don't have Netflix, just get on YouTube and type in Bill Burr. If you don't think this guy is funny as hell, I'll kiss your ass.
Thank you for joining us for another classic episode of The Steve Austin Show. Please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and tell your friends. For more Steve Austin Show, go to PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.
Stream your favorite drama movies and TV shows on Pluto TV. All for free. Watch all your favorite crime dramas like CSI and Blue Bloods. Or your favorite action dramas like Breaking Bad on Stories by AMC or The Walking Dead universe. Plus, Pluto TV has hundreds of drama movies and TV shows. Download Pluto TV on all your favorite devices for free. Pluto TV. Stream now. Pay never.
Hi, it's Kellyanne Conway.
And I'm David Plouffe, and we have some surprising news. We're teaming up for a brand new podcast, The Campaign Managers.
I know what you're thinking. Why would Plouffe and Kellyanne do this?
Because frankly, Kellyanne, we disagree on just about every issue, except about what it takes to win a presidential campaign. Kellyanne ran Donald Trump's campaign. I ran Barack Obama's campaign. We understand things like early vote. We understand how to leverage an opportunity and how to play defense when you've made a mistake.
2024 is an election like none other. And David Plouffe and I are going to take you behind the scenes like no one else can.
We're going to lean into our one-of-a-kind experiences, really educate our listeners about what to keep an eye on, and discuss the current strategies and tactics that both campaigns are deploying on the campaign trail.
We're going to disagree, we're going to dissent, but we're going to deliver. You won't want to miss this unique pairing. Join us by listening to The Campaign Managers with Kellyanne Conway and David Plouffe.
The first episode is out May 22nd, available wherever you get your podcasts.